Body shot. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When the adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. We talked about having a high-level main event on our hands. Arman Tsarukyan, Mateusz Gamrot, and I think that's exactly what delivered. What ended up being the fight of the night may very well have been the fight of the year, or at least a contender, I should say, because this is one of those fights you're going to want to see get ran back, maybe in a couple of years, maybe in a couple of months. Who knows? Either way, it was so high level. I'd love to see 15 more rounds of it. We even had the GOAT, Khabib, say, give me 5 more rounds. This was excellent matchmaking, and I'd have to agree. But I will have to say, in other news, let me bring in my co-host, because my man was on the verge, the New Mexico native, the Santa Fe Bomber. You were on the verge of a perfect 6-0 week, brother. However, controversial judging, maybe, or maybe just a misunderstanding of what the scoring criteria should be, led to Mateusz Gamrot, the gamer, with an upset. Brother, let's talk about it. How are you feeling off the bat, man? Big win.
Big win, Derick. You're telling me that the seminar they had for the rules and everything didn't leave us with more clarity? That's absolutely wild, my brother. And I agree with you. Great night of fights. Tricky decisions. There's some things there, but man, overall, it was a good night. I had a lot of fun watching them, man. How'd you enjoy it?
I really liked the fights overall, man. I will say, I do think that in terms of controversial decisions, the first fight of the night, things got off to a weird start. The last fight of the night, a little on the weird side. Everything in between, though, I thought was fine. Everything in between worked out pretty good. Lots of TKOs, lots of submissions, lots of new contenders, new blood in the division, man. The old dogs, they get sent out to pasture very often in this game. You already know what time it is, my man. But I think that we need to talk about one storyline before we talk about anything else, and that is Shavkat Rakhmonov, man. This is a dude right now, 16-0, all 16 finishes, steamrolls Neil Magny in what was more or less a one-sided demolition contest right there. Listen, I've been singing his praises, you've been singing his praises, but with this step up, obviously we're going to talk about it a little bit more. Would you argue he had the most impressive performance on the night?
Yeah, if not the most, one of the most impressive, man, especially to do that to Neil Magny. It was a lot of people were saying it was disrespectful to be choosing Shavkat Rakhmonov over Neil Magny. But you see it, man, the proof is right there. This dude is a killer, man. He was mauling from literally start to end. And, Real Magny's suffering or feeling the type of way with that 5 second left on the clock tap out, man. It's a rough one.
It is a rough one, but when you're sunk into that guillotine, man, there's not much you can do. I will ask you this, man. Courage is admirable, right? Courage and bravado and the ability to say, I'll take on anyone, anywhere is very admirable. But the real question that I have for you, AJ, is in this game, especially when you're an old chiseled UFC veteran, when you've got, 25 fights in the UFC, should you be a little more strategic? I feel like we've had this conversation before, but the real reason why I ask it is because don't forget, Neil Magny was like, I'll fight Khamzat right now. And I'm like, well, if this is the outcome with with Rakhmonov, what do you think would happen with Chimaev? I think it would be a similar or worse outcome. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree 100%. As much as the bravado is nice to hear, and we respect Neil Magny for that kind of stuff, man, you're playing with your career, and it's a little dangerous at some points to be doing that.
I just think it's not the smartest thing when you're the old veteran to say, let me take on the new hot young gun who 15-0, all, finishes, now 16-0. Sheesh. Either way, we'll talk about all that good stuff in a second. I think it's time, brother. We need to jump straight into some prop recaps, betting recaps, because while it was a great night on The Office on one hand, it was also a historic low on the other hand, brother. So let's talk about it. So, AJ, my man, once again, you pulled out almost the perfect week, 5-1 on the night in terms of the money line. So, brother, you pulled a full sweep. Money line, you got the win. Prop bets, you got the win. Over and unders, you got the win. I cannot say things are the same over here on my end. Little disappointing night for me, but let's revisit. Let's talk about it. So, Alan Baudot, Josh Parisian. That was our swing pick in terms of the fights right there. You had Parisian, I had Baudot, and once again, Baudot loses a fight that he was winning. You hate to see it, but it is what it is. 4-2 on the money line for me, 5-1 for you. Historic low, AJ. Historic low, 0-6 prop bets for me. Now, this one was a weird one because while 4 of those 6 fights I got correct on the money line, literally bricked every single one. So I don't think that it can get much worse from here. I think literally the only place I have to go is up from here. So folks, forgive me this week around, but we're turning it back around on the big show, the big pay-per-view, 276 next week. Now, otherwise, Over and under is 5-1 for you, man. You was on a pretty hot streak, 4-2 for me. So that leaves the record board remaining as 79-39 for you, AJ. You were killing the game. 75-43 for me. So now there is a 4-pick difference in the lead, my man. You are building up your lead and you are not letting go of that thing. First off, brother, salutations. I normally save these things for when you get the perfect 6-0, but I gotta give it to you. Round of applause, brother. You know what I'm saying? Victory lap. You got the job done this week, man. And I think that what's been most impressive is we've basically had these lineup of fights, right? And it's not necessarily I send in my picks and you say, let me analyze and then let me switch. You're just saying, hey, these are the picks. I'm going to rock with them, whether you like it or not. And you hitting on the money, man. Do you feel different? What feels different here, brother, in comparison to this time last year? I know you're saying you're paying more attention to the odds and stuff, but what's different, brother? Because you killing it.
Man, Derick, there is something different, but I don't really know, man, to be honest with you, brother. I think it's the same mindset that we've been preaching on this show for quite a while. Stick to the hard work, grind it out, and the results will keep showing, man. And honestly, like you said, a little bit of gamesmanship with the odds whenever I'm feeling kind of like that coin flip mode or where I don't really know what's going on. But other than that, brother, nothing really different, but it does feel different, and it feels nice to be up on the board 4 fights. And with a little less than half the year to go, man, it's starting to get to that pressure time, man. Are you feeling a little pressure going into this next bit?
Absolutely. I'm feeling some pressure, man. That's why something got to get a turnaround. I'm going to need see, this is the good and the bad. The good is, I want to be as competitive as possible. I want to get these clean sweeps going, just like what you pulled this week. On the bad side is, I don't want you to have a 0-6 week, because at the end of the day, both of our picks accumulative is what backs this show. So I need you to have a poor week, but I need to have a good one, but at the same time have a good one. And you know how it goes, man. Either way, one more time for the recap. This is what we're looking at for the UFC Vegas 57 betting sheet. Excuse me, folks. But we also have another statistic to pull up, and this is going to get a little rough. Once again, this are the props. AJ, my man, you did hit on a couple of these props. You had the Parisian TKO at plus 275. That was money right there. And the Thiago Moises submission at plus 215. So 2 and 4 were you overall on the prop bets. And like I said, clean sweep in all of the wrong reasons for me. 0-6, man, which is kind of crazy to believe. Chris Curtis couldn't get the TKO. Nurmagomedov couldn't get the submission. Moises, he gets the submission. And then Rakhmonov, man, he gets the finish. It just wasn't the finish I was looking for. So AJ, he wins the week, but let me just say this, man. Christos Giagos, the dude that Thiago Moises submitted, we're going to talk about it more in a second. He hadn't been submitted since 2014, brother. So that's why I think it's even more impressive that you got that prop victory. The man didn't get submitted in 8 years, and the last dude that submitted him was Gilbert Burns, man, first round armbar. So I'll just say sometimes, man, these are those spots where you come up big because you have some intuition. And just for the folks who are listening and watching at home, that Alan Baudot versus Josh Parisian fight, AJ, if you remember correctly, you didn't really even have the ability to say, hey, the odds are better here, I'm going to pick this dude. It was a pick 'em, minus 110 a pop. So congratulations, brother. Now, with all that being said, no more beating around the bush. Let's get to the main card, brother. Let's get it.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. And right off the bat, brother, let's just talk about how high level, how technical of a main event that we had on our hands. I think before we announced this is the winner, this is the loser, what's most important is that the fans at home, we were all winners here, brother. Like, 2 dudes, unheralded. Most casuals have probably never heard of them. But this is arguably the most exciting main event I've seen all year. What do you think?
And technical, Derick. Not only exciting, technical. There was power, there was control, rolls, man. The scrambles that were going on, and how, like I said, technical that these dudes were getting it done was absolutely impressive, man.
Yeah. So, but the question that I have for you right here, man, is that, like, this is the reason why the fans, the casuals, should pay a little more attention, because we saw this coming a mile away. But when it actually happened, it was even better than I imagined. I'm not going to lie to you. It was even better, because I was like, damn, man, the Granby rolls are incredible. The nonstop wrestling mitigating factor, the striking going 5 rounds, the experience between the two, and ultimately the 2-division KSW champion, Mateusz Gamrot, he got the job done. But, AJ, this cannot be completed. Our analysis cannot be completed without checking in on a couple of statistics. And those statistics ultimately look like this, man. You want to talk about razor close in terms of the striking edge? Well, let's talk about it, man, because I'm going to pull up right here the numbers, man, so we can just kind of go through it. So let's look at it. Not that one, but boom. All right. Arman Tsarukyan, Mateusz Gamrot. Look at these striking numbers right here, AJ. 110 total strikes to 108 total strikes in favor of Tsarukyan. 95 significant over 81 in favor of Tsarukyan. For takedowns, 1 of 8 for Tsarukyan, 6 of 21 for Gamrot. And I have to be honest, there a couple of those takedowns were very I don't know about all that. You know what I mean? It was one of those quick, like your knee touches the ground. It's like, oh, okay, we'll count it as a takedown. But when we're looking at the control time, I think that's the thing that ultimately won the fight for Gamrot, which is another one of those weird situations, but almost 5 minutes control time compared to a minute and 40. But this is the real thing that we need to talk about here, AJ. Before I show the numbers, let's talk about it, me and you, brother. If you had to say a scorecard for this, and you don't have to be super approximate, man. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but in terms of like how large of a discrepancy between these fighters were, was it 3-2? Was it 4-1? How did you see the fight kind of playing out in terms of the scorecard?
This was a hard one to score for me, Derick. I had this one 3-2. I didn't even going into the fifth, but for me, it's all on how you score that first, little bit of the fight. Because I think Arman Tsarukyan came out strong, was looking good, but then both fighters had their moments throughout the entire thing. So it was this weird ebb and flow of the fight game that both fighters had their moments, and then the other one would have some. And then they kept going back and forth and back and forth. So I had it even going into the second, but I can see I was reading the scorecards online or like through the Twitter post and everyone's going, and some people are saying 3-0 Tsarukyan going into the third or going into the fourth, excuse me. So it's weird to me because it's just I didn't really have a good way to score it, to be honest with you, Derick. So that's why I had it going even into the fifth, and whoever wins that fifth is going to get it in my book. So very close fight. I'm not upset about the decision that was made, but I can see how other people would think that Tsarukyan won the fight.
Well, it's tough, man. It's tough, right? Because it's just a matter of what counts more, damage, control time, whatever. But I do think that the big swing rounds were rounds 3 and rounds 4. I think those were the 2 rounds where, depending on what you saw, that's who won the fight, right? So let's talk about it. Round 3, I think arguably you can give it to Gamrot. And I wrote down some notes for the good folks at home because I did some scoring while I was watching the bout just so I can have my analysis for it. So what I wrote down was this, folks. So just bear with me for 1 second. I said round 1, Tsarukyan gets the job done. Takedowns, effective striking, give that Tsarukyan. Even though it was kind of a close round, tough to score. Round 2, Tsarukyan, more effective striking. At distance. He did a lot of those big body kicks, big leg kicks out at distance. I think he got the job done. Round 3, this was the swing one where I kind of edged it in favor of Tsarukyan, but I can totally see giving the round to Gamrot because of 2 takedowns plus control time, even though Tsarukyan did have a little more damaging strikes on the feet. However, AJ, this is where it gets tricky. Round 4. A lot of people are saying this should be Tsarukyan's round. I gave it to Gamrot, though, and it could be against all of the scoring criteria. It could have just been what you see at the end of the round is what sticks in your mind, right? Because that's a big thing for a lot of people, and the judges included. But Gamrot had takedowns, controls, submission attempts, and Tsarukyan just landed a little more damage, right? And then ultimately, the 5th round, which is, I think, whoever you wanted to win is who you chose to win because it was that close of a round. I gave it to Tsarukyan for cage control, damage, striking, all that good stuff once again. But Gamrot had control. He had, he did the little things that needed to be done. So now that I have that assessment of it, right, which I do think is more or less fair. I don't think that I'm too inclined in one fight or the other. Let's look at the actual scoring numbers, brother. So here we go. Mateusz Gamrot defeats Arman Tsarukyan. And let's look at these media scores, brother. Tsarukyan actually wins the media scores 15, I think, to 5 or 15 to 3, 6, like 7. 15 to 7, I believe, if I'm correct on that. And I'll zoom in for you a little bit, brother, so you can see. Look at that, man. Tsarukyan definitely holds the edge in terms of the media scorecards, and I don't know how much that means to you, but this is what I wanted to take a look at. So I say that Tsarukyan wins rounds 1 and 2. Well, he gets rounds 1 and 2 on every single scorecard. Now, for Sal D'Amato, basically gave Gamrot rounds 3, 4, and 5. So it's like, that's a real swing. Actually, if you look at it, it's unanimous. Everybody gives 3, 4, and 5 to Gamrot, which then makes us kind of beg the question of, okay, so round 3, I can see how you give it to Gamrot, but there's no consideration for Tsarukyan there. Round 4, okay, Gamrot, and round 5. I mean, yeah, if Gamrot just kind of edged it out by being busier, then he got the job done, brother. So, once again, we're not yelling robbery here. We're not yelling anything like that. We're yelling close fight. But I do have to say, does the media score mean anything to you in this situation, especially now that you've seen how, outweighed one is in comparison to the other?
It does. I think it weighs a little bit. Both sides, to be honest with you, good and bad. If you go back to those media scores, there's one person on that media score who scored a 50 to 46 or 45 for Tsarukyan. So that man didn't even watch the fight at all. I don't know. I was trying to, that's the name I was trying to look up. Dan something.
Dan
They're
Urban.
on the very bottom. Don't mean to call you out, Dan, but I mean to call you out a little bit because 54. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But to that point, if you subtract, the one outlier, and then I'm sure there's another outlier on the other side of the coin, then you can really see the numbers still are leaning towards Tsarukyan.
Yeah.
And for me, and why I think I was more impressed with Gamrot for this fight, is the facts of the takedown and the control time. We didn't even see Islam Makhachev do that to Tsarukyan. And I think that's kind of what weighs a little bit more for me and why I wasn't necessarily screaming robbery or giving the fight to Tsarukyan in my book. Having that control time and those takedowns in that fifth round, man, Gamrot was deep in on a double leg, got him to the ground, kept the control, all for basically the last, I think Tsarukyan might have turned around the last 3 seconds. So that for me, that's kind of what is the most. But I still, I weigh pretty heavily on, or I think the media fans should weigh pretty heavily, and it shows us a discrepancy against the judges as well. Do you count it pretty big?
Well, it's something to take into consideration, right? Because I think Tsarukyan won the verdict vote too. So you get the fan vote, you get the media vote, but the judges don't see it your way. But then again, man, is that necessarily indicative of who won the fight? This is the real question, man. Can you go home and sleep well at night after seeing the outcome of this fight and just be like, okay, yeah, Gamrot got it done? Like, can you sleep well at night?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
There we go.
It's one of those ones where you're not losing sleep over it. You might be like, damn, that was close, and then go to bed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's it. And think about it. Arman Tsarukyan's 25 years old. Gamrot, he's about 31. Two-time KSW champion. Lots of 5-round experience. Arman Tsarukyan had never done a 5-round fight before, so as much as Tsarukyan was the favorite, and a lot of people, in my eyes, like I said, I saw it 48-47 Tsarukyan, but that's neither here nor there. Gamrot is the man to get the job done. And remember, AJ, I said this in the pre-show. I said, if there's one man to disrupt the UFC storyline, if there's one man to disrupt and throw a wrench in the plans of the Arman Tsarukyan, Islam Makhachev potential rematch for the title at 155 pounds, it's Mateusz Gamrot. And now he says, I want anyone, anywhere. He's basically in that next queue for the next 2 or 3 fights to be fighting for that 155-pound title. So if there's a time to do it, it's the man in his prime at 31 years old who can wrestle with the best of them, scrambles jiu-jitsu with the best of them. Striking is pretty top-notch. And at the end of the day, what's the number one thing that stood out the most to me, AJ, is that Gamrot in rounds 4 and 5 is still looking like he's fighting in round 2 and 3. That was the big mitigating factor because Tsarukyan, he didn't start giving up those takedowns like for real until rounds 4 and 5. So experience played part right there, and Mateusz Gamrot got the job done, brother. So now that we've gone over it, we've seen the media scores, we've seen all of that, and even though some people might think that the judges screwed the pooch, I do think that this is a fight that needs to be set up for a rematch sometime down the road. Would you agree with me?
100%, man. The nice thing is these dudes are still young. I know. Mateusz Gamrot was 31, so still a little bit older, but still a very young fighter, man. We could easily see these dudes fighting in the next 2-3 years down the road. One of them has a strap. I think it'd be a great fight to run back. And I'm kind of excited to see what Gamrot does in the future, man. He wants Justin Gaethje.
Yeah.
That would be an absolute scrap. And then just going up from there, man, it's killer's row. So very entertaining fights for both of these dudes coming up in the future.
And imagine, look at that leap, man. You go from number 11 Tsarukyan to Justin Gaethje. It's a pretty large leap, but either way, I think that the gamer is game for it, brother. Let's get it. All right, man. Now let's talk about this co-main event. Neil Magny took on Shavkat Rakhmonov, right? And we already talked about it earlier. This was a scary proposition for any UFC veteran to take on. But what was more scary is this is something that I had noted. I said, as a longtime Neil Magny fan, I'm going to be very, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow, I guess I should say, if Rakhmonov wins this fight in dominant fashion. Well, guess what? Rakhmonov won it in dominant fashion. Very, very dominant fashion. The only problem was there was a couple spots right there where I was like, Neil Magny is about to heel hook Shavkat Rakhmonov. It's going to happen. His knee is going to explode, and he's way too calm for comfort right here to just be sitting there while his knee is getting, put in shambles right there. But the Nomad does what he does. He remained calm. He remained poised, and he set up a Darce on Neil Magny to then switch over to a guillotine and get the job done. So it wasn't a TKO the way I expected, man, and a submission was definitely in play. But how impressive was that performance by Shavkat Rakhmonov, brother?
Man, we were talking about it on the pre-show before how calm and just calculated a fighter Shavkat Rakhmonov is. And this dude stayed calm in the midst of a deep heel hook multiple times, too. He was just looking. At one point, he looked up to his coach like, okay, yeah, we're good. It was mind-blowing, man. This dude is the next level. 16 finishes, 16 fights, undefeated. already at the co-main event. You know this dude's going to be getting a main event spot soon. I'm excited to see who they're going to pair him up with because he's a killer, man. Shavkat is an absolute killer. And I don't man, like the way he fights too. It's that classic smash style, and I don't know who's going to be able to deal with it, man. That's if you're just looking at it, man, it's a very, very hard style of fight to do that. This dude's been doing since he was probably 5-6 years old.
Bro, and it's tough because it's like you can't stay out at range and throw kicks against him because he's going to catch a kick and take you down. You can't smother him because he's going to clinch you and he's going to trip you and take you down. He's, like I said, he's a specialist on the feet. He's a specialist in the submissions. And now we've seen, man, he has an urgency to be able to get you out of there. He doesn't want to see the rounds 3 and 4 and 5. Those weren't even on the table, but you don't want to see those rounds. Let's get you out of there, man. And once again, I do find it a little troubling because they keep saying this stat that Shavkat, he's never been in the third round. And we already mentioned before, yeah, he has. I think maybe they're talking about the UFC specifically, he hasn't. But either way, I think that beating Neil Magny in the fashion that he did, that's going to instantly propel him up the rankings, right? So he's going to enter the top 10. That's no doubt. But the real question here is, do you want to see Shavkat still take the slow route, the easy, slow, eased up route and fight the 6, 7, 8, 9 guy? Or do you say, throw him to the top 5, brother? Let's start seeing it's going to be Chimaev, Rakhmonov, Usman, you know what I'm saying? Who else we got at 170? Sean Brady, right? These are going to be the characters in play for the title. What do you think?
Oh, man. As much as I would want to just kind of slow roll Shavkat, give him a couple more, he's already 16-0, and he's a killer, man. Taking out a vet like Neil Magny in 2 rounds, almost 3, very, very close, man. I think you push him to the top, push him top 5. Let's see what he can do after that, because there's one, you don't want to send him to somebody who's going to steamroll again, and then we're just back in the exact same spot. And if he does, we put him up against a top 5, and he does steamroll somebody, then we're leading on to a little bit faster track. So I say fast track him, man. Set him up to that top 5. He's ready. I think he has a skill set to get it done. A lot of those, those names you're listing, the Kamaru Usmans, the Sean Brady's, Hamzat, Colby Covington, all these names up there would be very intriguing fights for Shavkat, and I feel like good matchups as well. Besides the champ, I don't think he's really outmatched by a lot of other people.
Well, let's be fair. Even though we had these high expectations for him, he did call out like the Jorge Masvidals, the Stephen Thompsons, you know what I mean? Which I think is unfair. Why are we picking on the old karate dude who can't wrestle? Like, come on, man. If you're going to pick on somebody who can wrestle. Go call out Sean Brady or something. God, I feel for Wonder Boy, man, because everybody wants a piece of him. But this is my question to you, man, because I think that with this performance, it solidified it. Is Rakhmonov no longer a dark horse? Is he now a bona fide contender in the welterweight division?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Especially with the fact that he's already on a co-main event. This dude's getting some media highlight for sure. And there's going to be, the ESPN reruns of him tapping out Neil Magny. So I think this dude is being pushed firmly into no longer the dark horse light. And it's going to be, we're going to be seeing his name in like I said, the banners and the actual main events here very, very soon, man.
9+ minutes of control time for Shavkat Rakhmonov over a savvy, crafty veteran in Neil Magny, and he pulled out the plus 275 submission prop. So if you had that, good on you. I actually thought that plus 150 TKO prop was going to hit a little bit easier, but he decided, hey, why beat him up when I could just choke him out? I don't know. Big win by Shavkat Rakhmonov, man. He is he's bona fide, man. At this point, there's no question. Do not doubt the man any longer. But in a real bout of twists and turns and in craziness, man, the heavyweight division, brother, the heavyweight division truly and honestly can flip in the blink of an eye. And I mean the outcome of a fight. Like one dude could be winning, and then the next thing you know, like after the round is over, it's like now you're losing. Why? Because you're a heavyweight, and one thing we forget is these dudes don't got gas tanks, right? What's one thing that I noted to you, AJ? I said if this fight goes the distance, like I don't know if Dana White will ever put a heavyweight fight on the main card ever again, because we get so many of these, and these are two dudes who can do it, who can go the distance. But apparently one of these dudes can go a little bit harder. Josh Parisian, man, he was all but out in the first round of this fight. And what did I say? Alan Baudot, when he fights downhill, he's a scary, scary man. However, round 2 happened, and next thing you know, Alan Baudot had no gas left in the tank, and Josh Parisian took over. And the man that we said had the grappling deficiencies, who would normally have issues when he would get outgrappled Baudot. He said, you got nothing for me in the jiu-jitsu, bro. But I have one question about this fight that I thought was interesting, AJ. What do you feel about fighters who you're ground and pounding your opponent, right? So he had Baudot basically locked up against the cage, couldn't move, and he's just throwing little pitter-patter shot, staring at the ref, looking at him like, bro, finish the fight, call it. And I'm just like, well, how about instead of you worrying about the ref, you just smash his face in so that the ref can do his job? Now, what do you feel about fighters who do that?
I mean, it's a cheeky little gamesmanship right there. You're trying to look at the ref. It's one of those ones where you're playing ball. You get fouled. You give him the look like, yo, man, you see this? You see what's going on here? I don't mind it. I think it is what it is. Give the ref a little incentive, but at the same point, I agree with you more than anything. If you want the fight to be finished, don't focus on the ref. Focus on pounding this dude's face in, and then let the ref step in and do his job, because he will. And you heard the ref even saying, hey, Baudot, you got to fight back. Alan, you got to fight back. And that's when Parisian's like, oh yeah, little pop shots, okay. But nah, I think you do need, and the good job on the ref not stepping in until I think it was he said it like 4 or 5 times, different times in both rounds 1 and round 2. So good job to him, but I think you gotta hit the power on those.
Absolutely, and I think it was very self-evident that the referee was giving Baudot so many chances, not because he was like so hurt and out of it, but because you could tell it was an exhaustion thing. It was just a fatigue thing. Like he just couldn't muster himself up. And this is what was surprising to me, man. Josh Parisian, if you actually look at the numbers, man, I think he weighed in like 12 pounds heavier than Baudot. So Baudot was the smaller, lighter, more athletic man, and that was actually the things that he said. That's what's going to propel me to victory. I'm more athletic. He's not going to be able to handle me. And then you got gassed out first. So it's another one where I say, Baudot, man, you lost a fight that you were in clear control of once again. And Parisian, man, one thing that I did say, right? I said he has the volume, he has the durability, but what's the big thing? He has the heart and determination that you cannot teach. And he put it on display once again. Second round TKO. They said, hey, Parisian, when Baudot hit you with that little, he hit him with some odd little just hammer fist to the chin, you know what I mean, standing. And he was like, when he hit you with that, how hurt with you? He was like, well, I must have been real hurt because I don't remember that. I was like, oh, shoot, heavyweights, brother. You have to love it. I don't really have much else to say regarding this fight other than it was a fight and that was a win. And, I don't really know what that's going to do for these two fighters respective because they're not in the top 15. Basically, AJ, before we conclude this wrap up right here, man, what do you think about the state of the heavyweight division in the UFC currently?
Man, this fight really shows the true statement of their levels to this game. Because as good of a fight as this was, and as entertaining and chaotic and back and forth, that you just think you send either of these dudes up to that top 10, top 15 level, like, man, you're just gonna get smashed on. So it's crazy to see how wide the gap is from the elite of the elite in the heavyweight division to the normal fighter, not normal fighters, but the fighters in the rest of the boys in the locker room. It's crazy, but in that same point, the rest of the boys in the locker room can still drop you with a pinky. Yeah. So there's nothing to be slept on ever in the heavyweight division. It's just wild to see the disparity in levels, if you will.
I absolutely agree with you because I was saying the same thing. I mean, on Twitter, they're harsh on there, bro. They say crazy things, right? They'll be like, there's really – so this is the tweet that kept coming up. They said there's only like 10 good fighters in the heavyweight division. And while that's not true, obviously, I can understand the hyperbolic nature of it, right? Just being like, you have the elite, and then you have just a bunch of dudes who can arguably go get sent out to the regional scene and might have like an okay shot there. Look for an example like the Juan Adams, man, no longer in the UFC, but now he's over there doing work. I think he's like in the PFL now or in Bellator or something like that, right? You got a lot of these like old heavyweight dudes, Jorgen De Castro and Eagle FC, just all these dudes who just kind of get thrown out there and they have like so-so outcomes in other organizations. But either way, big win by Josh Parisian. I don't know where I was going there. All right, AJ. So oftentimes when we talk about the human backpack, we're mentioning Aljamain Sterling and his performance on Corey Sandhagen. But Thiago Moises, he made that happen against Christos Giagos, man, in a very surprising turn of events because Christos Giagos, he had the haircut, right? He's looking fierce, looking mean, looking like he's going to come out, but he looked jittery and tense when he came out, man. He looked very on edge. Like he was, is he going to shoot on me? What's he going to do? And what did Thiago Moises do, man? He said, I need to get a win back on my record. So instead of me trying to sit here and play like I'm some amazing kickboxer, I'm going to fight towards my strengths. What are my strengths? I'm going to shoot for the takedown. I'm going to, work the single, work whatever I need to work, and then transition to where I could take the back, put the 2 hooks in, get the backpack, choke him out. That's what he did. And that was basically the name of the game for the fight. What was most impressive about this, AJ, once again, like I mentioned earlier, Thiago Moises is the first fighter to submit Christos Giagos since 2014. Last fighter was Gilbert Burns, man. It was a first-round armbar. So to be able to do that to Christos Giagos, a phenomenal wrestler, a man who actually took down Arman Tsarukyan when they fought last, I just thought that this spoke levels to how high level of a specialist Thiago Moises is when he hones in on his jiu-jitsu. Do you think that should be the move playing forward? When you're a specialist, hone your strengths, like work your strengths. Why are you sitting here trying to kickbox when you're the jiu-jitsu guy? Like, what do you think?
I mean, we've seen it work very well for Habib and a couple other specialists out there, man. And I agree with you. If you're that good at something, some sport or some area of the fight game, might as well just dive deep headfirst into that, and then let the other skills still work on those other skills and still bring them up, but really utilize that, because we saw it. And to me, what this fight for Thiago Moises really, I like the change I saw going forward is he knew he needed to win a fight. He was like, I can't just leave this one to the judges again. I got to go in there. I got to make a statement. I got to prove it. And that hungerness, I think, is what made the hunger drove the necessity to fight the way he fought necessarily. Instead of going Showtime mode and trying to get the big flashy KOs and fight the kickboxing fight, because that's what everyone wants to see. The homie said, fuck it, I need the money. I'm going to win. I'm tapping this dude out however it goes. And I think it's a very viable strategy for Thiago Moises going forward. If you could do that to a fighter like Giagos, there's a lot of dudes up there that Giagos could have done that too. So I think it sets up a really nice precedent for Thiago Moises going forward in the future. You feel me, Derek?
Yeah, I absolutely feel you, man. The question is, can he do this against the higher level competition? Because Thiago Moises, it's no disrespect or anything. I guess how I'm looking at it is that when you look at the problems he's ran into, it's been against the Yoel Alvarez, Islam Makhachev, Damir Ismagulov, Benil Dariush, like the highest of level opponents right there. Those are the people he's having problems with. But the people he's beaten, Christos Giagos, Michael Johnson, Bobby Green, Alexander Hernandez. So on one end, it's like, all right, Moises, man, like if you can get back to these routes and you can get another run to get to that top notch, you know what I mean, back into the rankings, because he's obviously he's 22 next to his name over here. At one point, he was like number 15, 14, 13, something like that. So if he can get back into that top 15 and get going again, man, the sky's the limit. This dude's young, bro. He's in his 20s still. So like that's what's even more impressive. So I don't know, man. Christos Giagos, tough test, but I guess that's where I wanted to ask you next, because we have to talk about the winners and the losers. For Christos Giagos, man, back-to-back losses to Thiago Moises and Arman Tsarukyan. He did have 2 good wins over Carlton Minus and Sean Soriano, but at this point, man, dude's 32 years old. He's had a hell of a run in the UFC. Is he just kind of this placeholder for a lot of these fighters to determine, like kind of a gatekeeper of sorts?
Of sorts, like a gatekeeper, but not like a gatekeeper into the top 15, if you will. And I feel bad too. I don't not necessarily feel bad, but it's rough for Giagos, because there's a time where he was really surging very high, and then now he's kind of fallen off a little bit and getting kind of the short end of the stick on a lot of these fights, man. He's fighting the top dogs, but really not getting any respect for it. So it's a hard one for Giagos, because at that age, and you mentioned it before, how he looks kind of timid or shaky or kind of just not necessarily locked into the fight. And even in the Arman Tsarukyan fight right before, you could see that Giagos struggles a little bit mentality-wise. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit of a flaw in the game plan. You could see he can not necessarily crumble under the stress, but just not handle the stress as best as you should, Yeah. So it's a hard one for Giagos. I hope he keeps fighting, and I do think he can do better in the division, because it's such a stacked division. So there's many rooms to crawl up into, So Giagos, I hope he sees some, a nice little opponent on the next one. But I feel like it's getting close to that, that time, if you will.
I would imagine it'd be a quick turnaround for both fighters. Not like either of them really took damage. It was just a quick submit. That's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, right? Just quick submission, in and out. All right, I'm still healthy. What's up? Line me up for another fight. Get me in the card 2 weeks from now. I don't know. But great win by Thiago Moises, man. Human backpack. Let's get it. Now, AJ, this is a fight where at the end of the day, I think Umar closed at like minus 1,000. And during the fight, he looked like he should have been fighting at minus 10,000, because that's how dominant of a display that he put on. The striking, phenomenal, man. The dexterity in his lead leg is incredible. His wrestling is smothering. Nate Maness, unfortunately, had to fight not to get embarrassed. He had to fight not to get submitted or finished, as opposed to fighting to win. So this is a double-edged sword, I guess you should say, for Umar Nurmagomedov. On one hand, bro, what is he now? 15-0, right? Let me look at it. Is he 15-0? Yes, 15-0. He's smashing everybody. Unfortunately, his 3-fight finish streak in the UFC has come to a halting screech thanks to Nate Maness here. But it's really hard to finish your opponent when they're not trying to fight you back like that, right? So the double-edged sword that I see here is that Umar is almost too dominant for his own good, meaning that if all of his fights continue from this point on, like the fighters know, all right, man, I need to not get embarrassed here. It's not going to be a stunning display. He's not going to be able to use that showmanship. You're not going to be able to get the finishes, right? Therefore, can you be a viable main card fighter, an exciting main card fighter, if this is how all your fights play out, if it's not even competitive like this? So that's my question to you. Like, the good side, he's almost too good for his own good, but the bad side is that might make him less and less of a draw. What do you think?
Especially with the lack of vocalness on the mic, the lack of call outs. And, the Khabib camp is going to be doing all they can to kind of get that going, because they saw how detrimental that was to Islam's career. Or at least not detrimental, but took him a lot longer than it should have to get where he's at. And I think the same thing's going to run into Umar right here. Nobody's going to want to fight him. One, he's a mauler. He's absolutely dominant. Two, he's not really going to do much for the fight, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not going to be doing extra press conferences or hyping up, getting the media involved, getting the crowd going, everything like that. So it's really a double-edged sword with how good this dude is, for the fact that nobody's going to want to fight him, as well as, it's a very hard sell to anyone else, if you will. So I agree with you. I see the double-edged sword as well, Derick. But I mean, other fighters have gotten past it. So it is possible for Umar to do the same thing. I just think it's going to be a little bit longer of a road than he's expecting. What about you?
Yeah, I'd have to agree, man. And this is a dude who's saying that I'm ready to fight for the championship. He's saying that if you line me up against the champion right now, I will dismantle, I will demolish him. And I mean, let's be honest, who's the champion right now in his weight class? It's Aljamain Sterling. So is Umar ready? I don't know, but I do know between Khabib, Umar, and Usman Nurmagomedov, I believe they're like 58-0 combined, bro. So in terms of the grand scheme, the grand plan of the Nurmagomedov takeover, that Abdulmanap, I believe, Khabib's dad, like his whole entire grand scheme, I think it's coming to fruition, which is kind of the beautiful thing. But Khabib is being the guy who's kind of running the shots now. So Umar, man, I just thought it was crazy, because when it came down to the wrestling exchanges, it almost felt like it was like he didn't have to try too much, man. He's just holding him down. He's like, all right, man, I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to wait for you to make a mistake, and then I'm going to submit you. However, the mistake never got made for Nate Maness. It came close a couple of times, man, where he's mounting him, he's doing these things. But at the end of the day, just a dominating, smothering win where Umar ultimately got the decision prop, man. Rough. Plus 175. So for all of us plus 100 submission prop bettors, man, yeah, rough night at the office for us. But I guess I want you to comment on that last piece real fast, AJ. Obviously, the man, I think, is top 15 ready, obviously, right? But is he championship ready, or are we blowing our horns a little too early on this guy?
I think we might be blowing the horns a little bit too early, just slightly a little bit too early. Because if he was championship ready, you should be able to finish a guy even if he's not, making the mistakes. You should be able to put him into some places where he's forced to make a mistake and then capitalize on that. Could really control the entire fight from start to finish. And as much as you can argue Umar was doing exactly that, controlling the fight from start to finish, I don't have the control time numbers up, but I'm sure I'm sure, yeah, 10, almost 11 minutes control time in a 15-minute fight. This dude is controlling basically from start to finish. But I just think he's 2 or 3 fights away from being to that caliber of championship fighter. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, just right on that cusp. I wouldn't push it too hard, but right there.
Well, that's the problem, man. Everybody wants to fight him just because of his last name, honestly, because of the Nurmagomedov name. But it's just going to be a tough outing, man. It's going to be a tough outing, especially because if he wants to sit there and strike a distance with you, he can knock your head off. And if he wants to just hold you on the ground, he can do that too. So big win by Umar Nurmagomedov. I expect big things in the future. This is the time now. Now that you beat Nate Maness, no more of these kind of, Nate Maness is a great challenge, but you know what I'm saying. Give him the top 15 fighters. Throw a number next to this dude. Get him on a pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go. So big win by Umar Nurmagomedov. And lastly, man, the action man, Chris Curtis, brother, he does it again. And this is a dude right now, 3-0 in the UFC. Only 2 finishes, man. He came close to finishing Rodolfo Vieira, but if there's one thing that Chris Curtis put on full display, it's that do not doubt this man's sprawl game. Do not doubt this man's ability to stuff a takedown, because he stuffed 20 takedowns against Rodolfo Vieira. The jiu-jitsu specialist, the black belt hunter Rodolfo Vieira, couldn't get himself into a submission position at all during this fight. Why? Because he couldn't secure the takedown. You're not pulling guard against Chris Curtis. He's standing up and be like, no, come on, get up, right? So, listen, slow start by Chris Curtis, but the thing of beauty that I saw with him is that he invested in this fight, and it seems to be a strategy of his. Yeah, you might lose the first round, right? But you invested in those pot shots to the body, knocking him to the body, slowing him down a little bit. And he had actually mentioned in his post-fight presser, AJ, he said that he had never hit somebody with so many body shots and them not fall down, and that at one point point, he hit Vieira with the body shot, and Vieira told him afterwards, he was all like, damn, bro, like I almost fell down, but I couldn't allow myself. I willed myself to stay on my feet. And Chris Curtis is like, damn, man, like you got heart, you know, I respect that, but you cost me $50K now, man. So what's up with that, you know? And that is really the name of the game right there, man. Chris Curtis, bro. Even though it was touch and go for a second, I felt like he was more or less in full control of this fight from round 2 on. But admirable performance by Rodolfo Vieira. Talk to me, brother. What do you think about this matchup?
Very admirable performance by Rodolfo Vieira, man. I was a little nervous to start, man. At the beginning of round 1, all the way up, and like you said, until round 2, a little nervous for the fight game. But man, Chris Curtis really proved that he's a dog out there. I'm excited to see where this dude's future is going, because if you just look at the numbers, one, stuffing 20 takedowns on anybody is incredible. Nonetheless, stuffing them on Rodolfo Vieira, very impressive as well. But this dude's mixing them up, head, body, investing in the body, like you said. Total strikes, outpoints, everything, man. Chris Curtis is an all-around really, really good fighter, man. A great fighter. Like I said, the ground game, we'll see how that goes in the next fight if they pair him up with another one, because I feel like that's what's coming in this dude's future, is another wrestling fighter, another grappling smash style kind of guy. But Chris Curtis has proven that he is nothing to be slept on, and he is a fighter that can handle his own. So, man, impressive for both people. And like I said, Rodolfo Vieira had me nervous for a little bit on that pick, man. That first fight of the night, or first fight of the main card, getting off to a weird start. But when you invest to the body and you keep ripping shots like that, Chris Curtis proved you can get it done, man. How did you feel about the fight, Derick?
Well, let's not forget that Chris Curtis had to overcome a little bit of adversity, man. Rodolfo Vieira did land a couple clean flush nut shots during that fight, right? One was in the clinch, just a straight knee. Another one was like a body shot. It was like a little teep, right? That kind of grazed, but then there was another flush one right after that the referee didn't even manage to stop the fight for, not even give him a break. So I could tell a little bit. It seemed like Chris Curtis was getting a little flustered in that first round, just being like, ref. He literally looked at the ref like, bro, what's up? And the ref's like, bro, fight, what's up? So when you get into that spot, man, I thought that the emotions were taking over a little bit, but then that's why you have a great corner, because you go to your corner and they tell you, hey, man, I need you to smarten up a little bit. This man is not your friend. You need to go out there and you need to fight this man. You know what I mean? You can be friends, you can get drinks afterward, talk about the fight, do whatever you want, but I need you to go into war mode. And it looks like Chris Curtis went into war mode after that. So all I have to say here, man, and this is kind of my thought process going into the fight. I said, at this point, can you doubt Chris Curtis anymore? Even going into the fight? Like, you can. His performances against Phil Hawes and Brendan Allen go to show that this man can have that indomitable will, and he will do what he needs to do to win. And I think it paid off, man, because he was the betting favorite and he got the job done. So odds makers got the job done. But if you look at the decision prop, brother, plus 900 decision prop for Chris Curtis, bro. Everyone, including himself, thought that was going to end in a finish. So that was a huge, huge win right there. But Chris Curtis, man, the action man, 3-0 in the UFC, brother. I mean, sky's the limit for this man right here. Rightfully so, man. Long due. He's had a long run to get into the UFC. But that is your main card breakdown, folks. And before we move on to anything else, obviously, drop a like, subscribe. We're actually at 390 subscribers, AJ. I don't know if I mentioned to you, man. Like I said, the people who is watching, who is supporting, they're showing mad love. We appreciate you guys, and that means we're one step closer. 10 more subscribers, we get to 400, man. That's a big milestone right there. So I do appreciate you guys. But let's move on to a little bit of prelim pour-over, AJ, because there's a little bit of a couple storylines I want to talk about. So I'm just going to move on over to the ESPN page, and we'll just break down a couple fights, bro. So check this out, man. First off, let's start with the Carlos Ulberg versus Tafon Nchukwi. Bro, Carlos Ulberg used a little check hook, right? A little jab check hook, right, on Tafon, and that was the beginning of the end, man. Precision beats power, and Carlos Ulberg with more of an aggressive stance. The Black Jaguar is looking more and more Israel Adesanya-esque coming out of City Kickboxing, man. And this one right here was an impressive display. Look at that, 15 strikes to 3 in favor of Ulberg. And like I said, man, all I was waiting for was Tafon to just throw that big power shot and see how Ulberg responded, but it never even got to that point. How impressive was that win?
Man, very impressive. And going from Carlos Ulberg's last fight to this fight against Nchukwi, man, he's growing levels, dude. Carlos Ulberg's putting in some work over there at City Kickboxing.
Absolutely, man. But, I mean, the big point is, who does that to Tafon Nchukwi? Like, nobody.
especially with the short little shots he was, or not short little shots he was throwing, but just the type of precision he was putting in. He's not loading up, dropping big bombs. He's just tapping the button, man. Yeah. Very impressive.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Tafon Nchukwi's last loss to Azamat Mirzakhanov, right? It was like a third round flying knee. Bro, that was the first time Tafon had been finished like that, I believe. And then back to back, you get hit again, man. It happens to the best of us. But I have to say, AJ, because on one hand, I do respect that, like, listen, we had some great sleepers, but I think I won the sleeper battle this week, brother. Shayilan Nurmagomedov versus TJ Brown, brother. This was a all-out war. This was one of those fights, man, where it was a sleeper for a reason, brother. People they don't know about this guy, Nurmagomedov. TJ Brown, they don't know how game this dude is. And while TJ Brown didn't get the nod, man, I think he put on one hell of a show that is going to keep him around with these high-level matchups, man. But look at this, 86-58 in terms of total strikes, 3 takedowns to 1, 7 minutes of control time to 2. This was a high-level scramble matchup. This was a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of submit. Look at the submission attempts, 4 for TJ Brown. They show none for Nurmagomedov, but that's more because he was using his wrestling more than he was using his jiu-jitsu. But I think that he stamped his seal of approval, I guess you should say, to be like, hey, man, do not sleep on me any longer. I don't think he can or should be slept on, but either way, what'd you make of the fight?
Yeah, man. No, I agree with you. And this is one of those fights where both fighters' stock rose in the featherweight division, man. Shayilan Nurmagomedov is going to be an amazing fighter going forward. And this fight reminded everybody that downtown TJ Brown is down for the get down, bro. This dude is a scrapper. Both these fighters, man, deserve a lot of praise. And I'm glad they're finally getting the light to be shown. You know what I'm saying? These ones, you better watch out for the future of these two fighters, especially Shayilan Nurmagomedov, because they're going to be alive for quite a while.
Absolutely, brother. And then I guess kind of going down the line right here, man, Raulian Paiva versus Sergey Morozov, man. This was a fun fight, and I don't know why this isn't going right here, why it's not clicking. Hold on, brother. There we go. All right. Raulian Paiva versus Sergey Morozov. This was a very competitive back-and-forth fight, but this was a fight where Morozov was the betting favorite, Paiva was the betting underdog. But this was the actual story, brother, because this is, when I was watching the fight, I was like, this is literally all that's happening. You have Morozov, who has a big left hand and wrestling, versus Paiva, who's just throwing that right cross down the pipe, landing that thing like he cannot miss. So it was right cross versus left hook and wrestling, and the left hook and the wrestling ultimately got the job done. It just came down to a timing thing, man. Paiva got too reliant on the right hand. As soon as he would come in, Morozov duck under, double leg, put you on your butt, get the control time. He had 4 minutes and 35 seconds of control time, which ultimately won him the fight. But I think that this is more of a statement towards how high level both of these fighters are, right? Because Sergey Morozov, if I'm not mistaken, one of the last dudes to beat him was, I think it could have been. Actually, I don't know, man. Bantamweight. Who else is in the bantamweight that we just saw fight? Was it Umar? I think it was Umar. That's right. It was Umar Nurmagomedov is the one who beat Sergey Morozov. That's one of his two notable wins, him and Brian Kelleher. So you lose to Umar Nurmagomedov, right? That's a step backwards. You get a fight against Raulian Paiva, who's been fighting these top-notch dudes, and you get the win over him, man. I mean, I think Morozov's stock is rising here. He does need to learn how to pull these hands up and guard his chin, brother, because I will say that was one major flaw that I saw there, is that there was too much shoulder rolls, too much moving that and just getting cracked over the top. Right hand. So, I mean, this was an impressive performance by Morozov, but my question to you more or less has to do with Raulian Paiva, man. 21-5. He's moved up between bantamweight and flyweight. I mean, where do we go with Raulian Paiva?
Man, and he's this kind of run where he was surging for a little bit, kind of took a drop off, had the was it the Sean O'Malley fight? I forget exactly which one.
Yeah.
I can pull him up real quick.
Yeah, I got it right here, brother. Sergey Morozov was last. Sean O'Malley. He had the win over Kyler Phillips.
It was the Kyler Phillips fight, actually, where he started to really but he won that one. So it was a Sean O'Malley fight. It's been a rough one. Even the Kai Kara and the Rogerio Bontorin, this dude's around. He's been around fighting the elites of the division. So he's on that one of those ones where it's a roller coaster, up and down, not necessarily on a surge anymore. Rough loss for him too, because this is a really good fight for both of these fighters, man. And I feel like Raulian Paiva doesn't get enough respect that he deserves either. Yeah. He's a scrappy dude, like you said, piston of a right hand that when it catches you, it catches you. But where do we go from here? I think this is going to be relegated to that top 15, top 20 gatekeeper position where you see young dudes coming in. You're going to have to face Raulian Paiva going forward.
Well, speaking of relegation, brother, because I agree with what you said, we need to talk about your sleeper, man. JP Bays versus Cody Durden. 68 seconds. That's all it took. 34 strikes in 68 seconds, which ultimately got the job done against JP Buys. And as much as this is listen, man, I don't feel good talking about this. I don't feel good talking about this at all because Cody Durden, both of these dudes needed to win. We said back against the wall, this is what makes this a sleeper. But the problem here is that JP Buys got dropped for his 8th time in his last 3 fights. So the chin is clearly compromised. Something is wrong here. Maybe he needs to be fighting at 135 pounds to avoid this from happening in the big show, because it seems like every time someone touches his chin, he just kind of starts to crumble. Now, Cody Durden, the thing about him is that he kind of finishes his fight and he says, "Good luck on your future endeavors, JP," which is more or less, I mean, that's such a low blow right there, bro, because that's basically being like, yeah, bro, yeah, you got cut, even though both of these dudes were on the chopping block. So if it was the reverse situation, I don't know if JP Buys would have said that. I don't know. Okay, was it the honorable thing to do? Are you throwing salt in the wound right there?
No, man. Not after. I mean, if this was a street scrap, maybe, if we got beef with this dude, he did me dirty, yeah, maybe. But I mean, this is a fight. This is an event. So and you should be one of the ones pulling people up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But unless they did something dirty behind the scenes and nobody talking about, then I agree with it. But other than that, if everything's above water, I think it was a dirty move.
Well, I think that JP just kind of, or not JP, I think Cody Durden, he just kind of has a chip on his shoulder, man. You know what I mean? I think that he's really just, because he screamed, he was all like, "I belong here." And it's like, well, you beat a dude who has no wins in the UFC. So it's like, okay. But either way, man, this was a 68 seconds, brother. A win is a win is a win, and Cody Durden got the win, and I think that's all we can say there. Even more impressive, though, brother, and we're kind of rolling down all of these fights just because, I mean, a lot of these were quick, man, but this was a big one right here. Mario Batista getting the first round rear naked choke win over Boom Kelleher. This was impressive to me because both Mario Batista and Boom Kelleher probably expected a war. And the problem is, and this is the thing with the commentary I had a problem with. They were like, this is the first time Brian Kelleher has ever been submitted with a rear naked choke. I was like, well, he just got submitted in his last fight with the rear naked choke by Umar. So what are we talking about here? But this is back to back, man, and this is not good momentum for a Brian Kelleher right now, bro. But Mario Batista is the truth, and that's the real thing that's the storyline, I guess you should say. But when we take a look at Brian Kelleher right here, man, real crafty veteran, 35 years old, but look at that. Losses in back-to-back against Batista and Umar Nurmagomedov. Wins against Domingo Pilarte and Kevin Kroom. Those are big. Loss against Ricky Simón, Stamen. What do we have in common here? When he comes up against these grapplers, yeah, problems, right? Cody Stamen, Ricky Simón, Batista, Nurmagomedov, John Lineker, I mean, that's more hands. Montel Jackson, that's more hands. But, yeah, you get the point that I'm saying, man. I think he's just too willing to scrap against anybody. He has the same problem Neil Magny has. And it's not a problem because this is what you expect out of a prize fighter. But at the end of the day, man, it's like you want some wins to get back on track, man. What happens here with Boom Kelleher going forward, bro?
Yeah, you're right, Derick. At the end of the day, the first word there is prize of fighter. You got to win that. You got to win to stay relevant. And what do we do for Boom Kelleher, man? This dude, unfortunately, one of the greats in the division, but starting to get relegated to the bottom of the poll, man, starting to really become that stereotypical gatekeeper that is going to be fighting all the young dudes coming up. And the nice thing is he still has power. He still has submissions. He can still get things done. But he just keeps on finding himself in these rough situations, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So last fight, which was actually the first fight of the night, one that was marred in a little bit of controversy, Vanessa Demopoulos gets a split decision win over Jinh Yu Frey. And this is problematic to me because it was a very close fight. However, if you look at the MMA decisions, brother, boom, what do we see here? I don't see not one score in favor of Demopoulos here. And let's not forget, we have a 30-27 by one of the judges. However, I guess won by Demopoulos, right? Boom. And let me actually refresh. See if anything has changed here. And it looks like, no, man, it's the same. Demopoulos gets one vote. Frey gets all the rest, man. This is why it's rough, man, because what do you want of these fighters? I will admit, if you think about it, I do think that this card is... This is correct right here, Sal D'Amato. And sometimes it's tough to agree with Sal D'Amato, but this is the correct card. Frey gets rounds 1 and 2. Demopoulos gets round 3 because it looks like Jinh Yu Frey, she actually, kind of gassed out towards the end of the fight, right? But this is another one of those spots. This is my question to you, man. You can't blame Vanessa Demopoulos. She doesn't judge the fight. She just fights. You can't blame Jinh Yu Frey. She just fights, right? This is the problem I have. Split decision, 29-28 one way, 29-28 the other way, 30-27 one way. What do we, is one judge not watching? This is my problem. Do you find that more problematic? That type of split decision where one judge sees it completely favored the incorrect way, I suppose. Or do you think that it's just, once again, a criteria type situation, a misunderstanding of the scoring criteria? What do you think is the bigger problem at hand?
I think the bigger problem is the cards going against the grain, because obviously 99% of everybody else saw going for Fry, even me as well, saw going for Fry. But there's always that one outlander. I called him out in the earlier fight, Dan, and I didn't look at the name for this guy right here. But when you're seeing it completely biasly to one side, it looks like you're not even watching the fight. Like you're literally not. You're just sitting there on your phone checking Twitter, like just thumbing around, man. It's absolutely crazy, and it must be frustrating. Like it's frustrating for us over here watching it, but imagine that you put in a hell of a fight, in your mind you're like, I want 2 rounds, I'm feeling good about this. 30-27, what? Like, you think I want all 3? Like, oh, okay. And he's like, nah, the other guy won all 3. You're like, what? Yeah. It's just mind blowing, man.
And then you take a look at Jinyu Fry's record now. At this point, she would have been on a 3-fight win streak, 3 solid wins against DePaula, Yoder, and Demopoulos. But now you get that loss. So now, I mean, look at the spotty record, 11-7, right? It's not where you want to be in the UFC, because this is a former Invicta atomweight champion. She comes to the UFC and she is now 2-3. She has an under 500 record. So this is what happens. You lose half your paycheck, and now you're in a bad spot fighting potentially for your career, because if I'm not mistaken, 1, 2, 3, 4, that was her 5th fight. So maybe she did get a new contract, but we'll see what happens, man. This was her first fight in like a year, bro. So, long time right there. But that is all of the fights right there, man. Fun night of scraps here at UFC Vegas 57 in the lead up to UFC 276, man, which is going to be coinciding with International Fight Week, man. Lots of fun activities here on the horizon. But before we do any preview or we even look forward to next week's event, we still got to wrap up a couple of formalities here with one thing. First and foremost, ranking review. Let's talk about it, brother. And today we need to talk about a dude who we've spent a lot of time talking about already, but I think it's only fair that we speak about him just a little bit more, because at the end of the day, Umar Nurmagomedov is a man who, like I said, he's top 15 ready, but we need to talk about how top 15 ready is he? And I don't mean that in the sense of like, is he ready for that 14 spot that I'm talking about? Is he top 6 ready, top 7, or like where exactly are we at? So I'm just going to take a dive really quickly into the bantamweight division, and we're going to see, because I fall victim to the problem that I don't even have him in my top 15 right now, brother. And that's because it's like you needed to put on these displays. You need to really prove to us that you're the real deal like this. But when it comes down to it, AJ, let me zoom in just a little bit. There we go. Okay. So right now, these are basically the most current rankings that we have on deck right now. Adrian Yanez is at that 15th spot in the UFC's consensus rankings. I have Jack Shore at my 15th spot. You have Rafael Assunção in your top 15 spot. So when we're looking at number 10 through number 15, let's not forget Umar Nurmagomedov. He's 15-0 in MMA, 4-0 in the UFC, 3 submissions in his 4 UFC wins, and notable wins include Sergey Morozov and Brian Kelleher, right? So if we're talking about, and I don't even want to do this, but I'm going to do it because we didn't even mention it last week, Adrian Yanez. Let's take Adrian Yanez and Umar Nurmagomedov. And as much as Adrian Yanez is the more popular fighter, even though Umar has the famous surname, that's a tough fight, bro. Who do you think gets the job done there?
That's a scrap right there, Derick. That's a really fun one on the feet as well as on the ground, because Adrian Yanez can hold his own on the ground. Unfortunately, though, man, I got Umar winning that fight. I think he's a little bit more of a technician, all well-rounded. I think he gets that one done. What about you?
See, it's tough, man, but the problem with Adrian Yanez is I haven't really seen him truly tested against a Umar Nurmagomedov level grappler, a demolition man grappler who holds you down. There's nothing you can do about it. So, yeah, I'd have to give Umar the nod there. It would be close, though. I feel like maybe I'm just hyping up Yanez too much. Maybe it wouldn't be close, but that's how I feel right now. Now, I'm going to keep going higher and higher until you stop me, brother. Sean O'Malley. You take Sugar Sean O'Malley, the Sugar Show, who's getting ready to fight Pedro Munoz, number 8 in the division right now. If Umar Nurmagomedov even has a relative chance against a Sugar Sean O'Malley or a Pedro Munoz, that goes to show just how good this dude is. So what do you think, man? Who does he...
I think he has a shot against both, to be completely honest with you, man. You know how big of a fan I am of the Sugar Show, but I still think, man, Umar with the wrestling and the smash style, he gets around Sean, and unless Sean can get a crazy knockout right away, which is possible, it can happen. I think the grit and determination, the smash style that Umar presents is going to be a rough challenge. Same thing for Pedro Munoz too, man. He can, and he's gritty. Pedro's a gritty warrior. He can get it done. But I don't know, man. Something about Umar just makes me think he's going to outclass these dudes on the ground.
All right, brother. So, like I said, I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, but I'm just going to keep going until you stop me, man. Merab Dvalishvili. This is a dude who's getting slated to fight Jose Aldo, man. This is a big, big time opportunity on his hands. Can he get the job done against Umar Nurmagomedov?
Now this is the point in where I start to see a little different, because even though I have Pedro Munoz above Merab, I think Merab gives you more problems in the wrestling department, which I think could be harder for Umar. Especially you could put on your back. You're not used to that kind of in that situation. Merab's a machine. He's going to keep going 100%, and he has pretty good striking as well. I think both him and Dominic Cruz could give Umar a little bit more of a challenge than he's expecting, especially with the funky style of Dominic Cruz, the offbeat, the off tempo, and the next thing you know, you're shooting for something wild. He slips out of the way and kicks you in the forehead. I think both of those fighters are where we start to give Umar a little bit of a problem.
But give me the final tally right there, man. Does he get it done or no?
I'm thinking no against Merab.
Okay.
I'm thinking yes against Dominic, but no against Merab, man. I think Merab gets that one.
Okay, so if Merab is the line right there, then we're looking at about number 6, right? And number 8, you said Dominic Cruz might give him some problems. Another interesting one, Song Yadong. Do you think he can get it done against Song Yadong?
I think, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Because Song, he's still young, he's still snappy, he can come in, he can maintain that range for a long time, and I don't think he's going to get drawn into the grappling style of fight. I think he's going to fight his karate style, he's going to maintain that range, like I said. That's a harder one, but at the same point, can you avoid the takedown for 15 minutes? Can you avoid that smashed off 15 minutes? I don't know, man. I think I got to give that one to Umar as well. What about you?
Yeah, brother. I think I'd have to give that one to Umar. That's what's so scary about him. Is my problem is that if you want to talk straight striking, yeah, if you crowd him and you keep it in a striking contest and you make him box, yeah, you might definitely have some success against him. But if you get too close and you crowd him, he's just going to clinch up and take you down. So it's like he's very good on both ends, man. That's what makes him so scary. But that is your rankings review right there. Umar Nurmagomedov, clearly he's going to have to be reflected in our rankings come the Tuesday update right there. But now let's talk about Fighter of the Night, AJ. Let's get into it.
Right now, there is not a man in this planet that can stop me inside this octagon. The celebration is more work than the fight.
Fighter of the Night. And AJ, this is another card here where you could name many, many fighters and say, you were my fighter of the night. You could say Mateusz Gamrot, you're the fighter of the night. You can even say Arman Tsarukyan, you're still the fighter of the night, given how competitive their bout was. You could talk about Shavkat Rakhmonov, Umar Nurmagomedov, Chris Curtis, all of these guys. But I'm interested to know, man, who is your fighter of the night for UFC Vegas 57, brother?
Yeah, Derick, my fighter of the night. This one is another hard week to choose because there's so many different good fighters and different good performances, as well as storylines, all the stuff that go into our fight of the night. But excuse me, the one I'm going with, man, I'm going Thiago Moises. And It was a short fight. It was a quick submission, but it was one that was needed. It was one that was on where it was one of those, like, this is my line in the sand, and you were not crossing past it. This is one where he dug his toes in and said no more. And that's what I like most about it. When the chips are down, everything's looming. You see the dark clouds in the sky. The end is nigh. Everything pointing to, you leaving what you love to do. Thiago Moises buckled down and said, I'm here to fight. And that's what I respect most, man. You need to win some points in life. And you go out there and you get that win. That's what gets me excited. That's what motivates me. And then whether you're fighting or a big project in work or whatever the case may be, you see a little bit of challenge. I'm a fan of those who don't get scared and shy away. I'm a fan of those who turn face, look you dead in the eye, and are willing to, go into a submission with a submission specialist. Get it done with the way people don't think is going to happen. And for all those reasons, that's why Thiago Moises is my fighter of the night, man. Very impressive win and a little bit understated. I feel like there's other performers out there who kind of got a little more hype to it, a little more storyline, a little more, pizzazz from the media. But I don't want you guys to sleep on Thiago Moises, because coming back from the mental losses and the struggles he was having to put on against Christos Giagos, get that submission in 3 minutes, very, very impressive. And for all the stuff I said before, Thiago Moises, my fighter of the night, made for a very entertaining fight, and third fight on the night, fourth fight from the main card. This dude's kind of getting shunned, so pay attention, man. Moises is not done yet. Derick, what do you think about the pick, and who's your fighter of the night?
That's a great fighter of the night, man, especially given that he just came in, clean style, got the job done like an assassin. You got to love it right there, man. So shout out to Thiago Moises. The future is bright. He's a dangerous man. Like I said, he's young too. Come on, bro. So that was a great pick. And I'd have to say, for my fighter of the night, I was really struggling, man. I said, who do I go? Do I go Gamrot? Do I go Tsarukyan? Chris Curtis? Shavkat Rakhmonov? And to be honest with you, brother, I actually am going to take a stray. One for a man who isn't getting much recognition whatsoever, man. I'm going to talk about Carlos Ulberg right there out of City Kickboxing, man. He's actually my fighter of the night, given the impressive nature of this man. This is a dude who is a physical specimen, a man who truly has all of the intangibles, the tools, everything that it takes to be really, really successful at 205 pounds. And the scary part about it is that he's an athlete too. So now that he's getting his power underneath him, getting that aggressiveness going, and kind of rebounding from some of what I think the mental blocks that were kind of capping off his performances, and doing things to disgusting, filthy, and what I mean that in all the best ways, animals like Tafon Nchukwi, one of the scariest men that I would ever want to get matched up against. Carlos Ulberg goes to show, man, he can remain calm in the threat of danger when you have a dude swinging bricks of hands at your head, and use that precision, use that Israel Adesanya style bender-esque offensive approach, use that tactic to be able to get the job done. Surgically, I guess you could say, however you want to frame that. But either way, Carlos Ulberg is a man to be reckoned with, and I ultimately think that he's going to have a very, very solid run at 205 pounds if he can just keep up the momentum. If you really think about it, this dude is new to MMA. He has all of 8 MMA fights. So give this man another 5-6 fights, and then let's check back in and see where he's at. But I just want to make him my fighter of the night because I think that this is the stamp that he needed, the start of a new approach, the start of a new fighter, the Black Jag right there that I think is going to be taken over here in the near future and being a pillar of the men's light heavyweight division, brother. So out of all the picks, I know it's kind of out of left field. What you think, man? Carlos Ulberg, monster, yeah?
The monster, man. I actually almost made it my fight of the night too. I was laughing over here because you're right, man. Carlos Ulberg, why I like him most is how much he's grown since his last fight, man. This dude is making leaps and bounds. Young in the game, he's going to be a problem for quite a long time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with that being said, that's your fight of the night. Let's hit a little word on the street and get up out of here, AJ. So I don't have too much for you today, man, but I did want to mention just a couple of headlines right here, and this is one of them right here. Greg Hardy details his conversation with the UFC over his recent release, and basically, he had nothing but praise to say, man. He says, "This is the best organization I've ever been a part of, not even second to the NFL. They hit me up. My contract was already up, so we knew it was up, but they hit me up and told me if you get some wrestling going in another promotion, we'd be glad to sign you back." And that's kind of what I wanted to hit on right now. Given that the door is still open for another Greg Hardy reappearance in MMA, and given that Greg Hardy, if I'm not mistaken, actually just signed to bare knuckle fighting, it's interesting, man, because going to bare knuckle fighting isn't going to help your wrestling whatsoever. So I don't really know how serious we are about making another UFC run. But do you think the cards are on the table? Do you think if he did get some wrestling underneath his belt that he would pose real problems in the heavyweight division in the UFC?
He's a big boy, man. He gets some wrestling under his chops. He goes to the DC Academy and really gets things going. Yeah. I think he could be and you know, for all the grief we give him, man, he did become quite a better fighter than when he started, man. So especially if he takes that mentality going forward into it and learns a lot, I think he could. But like you said, bare knuckle fighting is not going to get you better at your wrestling. So I don't know where that decision came from. Maybe they were paying him a little bit more than PFL or whatever else.
No, you know that, man. But the other part, too, is that he had always mentioned he would want to do pure boxing, right? So I'm like, well, if MMA isn't the sport for you, man, then just go hone in on boxing and get the paycheck. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. One last one, brother. I guess I might have two, but we'll just see depending on time. Michael Bisping, he notes that Conor McGregor had a crazy run, but he doesn't go down as one of the featherweight greats. And I actually think that that's more of a fair opinion than people would give him credit for, because if we're being honest about the situation and we look up Conor McGregor on Tapology, right, we're just going to go take a little dive through really quickly just to go to show that as much as he's had these very money-making, you know, lucrative fights, in terms of like recent note, man, I mean, come on, brother. So let's look at it. When did he get the, let's see, let me pull this down. For Jose Aldo featherweight championship, right? He beat Jose Aldo back in 2015, right? That was a big, big win right there. However, AJ, the problem is, he fought Nate Diaz after, right? And that was at, that was at 170 pounds. Then he fought Nate Diaz again at 170 pounds. Then you took the 155 belt away from Eddie Alvarez, so now you're the double champ. You boxed Floyd Mayweather. You lost to Khabib at 155. You fought Cowboy Cerrone at 170, lost to Poirier at 155, and then lost to Poirier again at 155. So that means that this amazing run that he had at featherweight ultimately culminated in a championship, but you never defended. So can you go down as a great in the featherweight division? The answer is no, you can't, right? You never defended your belt. You can go down as good, a dude who won the championship, but is Jan Blachowicz a great light heavyweight because he won the championship? No, he's a very good light heavyweight, but, you know, if he gets it again and does a run, we'll say something different. But what do you think about that?
I agree with you, and on the surface, it looks like a harsh statement from Bisping, but you dig a little deeper, you're right, man. If you go back to his featherweight record, I believe there's only 3 notable names, man. That's up there: Jose Aldo,
Max
not Chad
Holloway,
Mendes, but,
Max Holloway, Jose Aldo. He does have Chad Mendes though, so Chad Mendes.
That was those are the other ones, or it might have been Frankie. One of the other.
Dustin Poirier.
Poirier. There's a few notable names, but not the star-studded list that if you ask any casual fan, they'll say he fought everybody and anybody at anywhere, you know. So I'm glad Bisping came up to that because it is more of a true statement than not, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's the whole point. You have to ask yourself this. What do I want? Do I want to be as rich as ever and cement my life for, you know, my kids' life, generational wealth, or do I want to have a legacy? And I think that's the choice Conor McGregor made. He said, well, there's a lot of these dudes who have great legacies here in MMA, but are flat broke right now, begging for change out on the street. And I don't want to say that in a disrespectful way, but that's the unfortunate reality. And then you have the dudes who made all the money who might not have the crazy legacy. And if you look at it in the last, let's look at the last 6 years. McGregor is 3 and 5 in his last 6 years, man. So not looking too hot, brother. I'll just say that, man. So I think that's actually a perfect place to end right there, man. Don't judge a book by its cover. And what I mean by that is don't just sit here and, when you see a comment like that, don't take it at face value. Dig in, do a little research. You'll kind of find out a lot of these things have a lot of validity. So that's it, AJ, man. Next week, we have a pay-per-view on our hands. Israel Adesanya, Jared Cannonier, Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway, the trilogy, brother. This is going to be a fun fight. Loaded night of fights, man. But I do have to mention, because this actually got called during the broadcast here this weekend, Miesha Tate versus Lauren Murphy is off the card, brother, for undisclosed reasons. Murphy, we don't know if she's hurt. We don't know if she got sick, something happened, but that card is off of the table. It's canceled, and it will be moved to a future date. So it's something to take into consideration. But otherwise, pure violence on the card, man. You excited?
Dude, very excited, man. The fact that they're putting this one on ABC as well for the prelims, you get to watch it, folks. You get to tune in, man. It's going to be a great one.
Absolutely. So we're going to save all of our coverage for Friday, on the pre-show. But you know where to find us, bloodywaterpodcast.com. You can hit us up on all the socials, Bloody Water Podcast on Instagram and on TikTok, and Bloody Water Pod on Twitter. So no matter where you go, you should definitely get redirected to the number one source, the hub, bloodywaterpodcast.com, or our YouTube channel, Free Thinkers Club, or the Bloody Water Podcast. Type either one into YouTube and you will find us. 390 subscribers. Let's get to 400. You know what time it is. AJ, you got any last words for the people?
Man, I just got to say thank you to those extra subscribers that are coming in. I've been putting a lot of work over here in Austin, man. I see a lot of people meeting up, getting the follows down, so we appreciate all the love right here. Got to tune in next week. Make sure you share the show with your friends. All the jazz. You already know all the jazz. If you made it this long in the video, you already know we love and support it. And thank you. Next week's gonna be fun, man. Let's get it.
That's right. Until next time, folks. Peace.